Welcome to the Friday the 13th edition of Anglican Unscripted. This is episode 168, and I'm here with the one small final thread we have with Canterbury, him. I'm Kevin Carlson.
I'm the Reverend Peter Old, and today is March the 13th, 2015.
All right, welcome to the Friday the 13th edition of Anglican Unscripted. For some of you, this is a day based on karma. For the rest of us, it's just another day in the calendar. However, we're going to talk about the Church of England and a certain diocese with a bishop who either supports Muslim worship in a church or doesn't, but certainly has a rector who does. Now, you and I talked last Monday about breaking news that day that there was a Muslim worship service happening in the sanctuary of a parish in a certain diocese. Help me update the story.
So, in Southwark Diocese, in St John's Waterloo, there was last Friday a full Muslim Friday prayers service, and as of this morning, this story, this morning here in Britain, this story has gone mainstream. It is in the Daily Mail, it's in the Daily Telegraph, a great piece by the journalist John Bingham there, and you know what? I'm lost for words. I really am lost for words. I've been speaking to a number of people in Southwark Diocese, and for them, this is the absolute final straw. If the Bishop of Southwark is not seen to do something very clearly, very publicly about this is going to be the end of the road for a lot of Orthodox clergy on this.
Let's back up a little bit, because it may be the final straw, the camelback thing, but there's been liberal theology, non-gospel theology in the Church of England for 60 years, many decades. And so the final straw is when Muslims get to worship in the church.
It's when you get Islamic worship in the church. Yeah. Southwark Diocese has been famous for decades for being a bastion of liberalism. You've had something in the 60s called South Bank theology, right. Based on the South Bank of the Thames. But in recent years, with the new Bishop Christopher Chesson, Orthodox clergy, and this is conservative evangelicals, charismatic evangelicals, have there's been increasing disquiet. Most recently, over a series of senior appointments that appear to be very liberal and very controversial. Senior staff responsible for many clergy who are gay in civil partnerships, and lots of conservative clergy going, you know what, our guys never get appointed, never get promoted, never get considered. We're just pushed to the side, and increasingly the Orthodox faith is just being pushed out. And so you had the Southwark Declaration, which was sent to the bishop. And now, this week, in the last 7 days, you've got a Church of England church that is hosting Islamic worship, okay? And the full Friday prayers in a Church of England church. And you know what? That's just an explicit denial of the gospel. It's an explicit rejection of the uniqueness of Christ and who he is, his death for the sins of the world, for the church, and his rising in glory. It's a rejection of that. No. For someone to stand up in a church and say there is only one God, Allah, and his messenger is Muhammad, for him to be allowed to say that in the context of a worship service that is geared around that statement, that is an absolute outrage. It really is. Well, I cannot emphasize that more.
No, this is ball in the temple. This is as bad as it gets.
Yeah, look. Here's my iconic. fantastic icon, right? There he is.
Okay.
Right, we like this bloke.
Well, now, hold on.
Rid of him.
For people who are not in the know, who is that?
That, mate, is your Lord and Saviour.
That's
okay?
right.
Let's get rid of him.
Put him
Here's
to the
my
side.
friend Pastor. Okay, here's my friend Pastor. Okay, he was the best one I could find in the
Short
the
term.
There he is. Let's pop him up there. Can you see him there? Okay.
Let me move the camera over a little bit, and yes, I see him.
Yeah, there he is. Okay, all Anglican Unscripted viewers, let's just bow down, return and bow down and worship this guy, okay? Let's just worship him. And tell you what, if you could send us your gold jewellery, your watches, get your fillings out, earrings, send them by direct post, right, as fast as you can. We will melt them down, get you a proper one of these.
Absolutely.
Because apparently that's okay now. Apparently we can worship false gods in a church in England, and nobody's going to do anything about it.
Well, let's talk about the difference. For the longest time, we've had ecumenical services and interfaith services in America, in England, around the world. An interfaith service would be like the Anglicans meeting with the Episcopalians. What? No.
Interfaith would be anybody worshipping with Catherine Jefferson.
Interfaith, ecumenical. And so, but this is much different. This is an actual, I don't want to go too far off the battlefield here, but this is evil in the church sanctuary. Yes.
It's an abomination, let's just say. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, interfaith worship or meetings and gatherings, okay? Work, I've been involved in one. They work okay when you basically obtain bits from different people's religious things, sort of echo things. So they tend to be, interfaith worship works okay when you sort of rooting it around a kind of ethical issue, and nobody makes explicit theological statements that are contradictory. Okay, that works okay, right? That's fine. That is not what happened in St. John's Waterloo. Okay. Secondly, there are one or two places in the United Kingdom where some churches let Muslim groups use their church halls for Friday prayers when there isn't another space available. Okay, happens once or twice, and that's a sign of hospitality. It's saying, look, we've got this space here, you can use it for that, but not in the church building. Right, a church building is consecrated for the worship of this bloke, not that we worship
the guy back there. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? It's consecrated for the worship of the triune God. Okay? And the canons of the Church of England, F15 I'm thinking of, but also some of the B canons, explicitly say that you should not use the consecrated space for anything that is, unseemly, that is drawing away from the true doctrine. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but that's what it says explicitly. Okay, so renting out a church hall to a group, right, on a one-off occasion, because they have nowhere else to go, you want to be charitable, not a problem, right? Setting up an explicit worship service of an anti-Christian theme, right? Being technical, anti-Christian, an explicit theological statements denying Christianity in a church, not acceptable. And I know it goes on half the time in your churches over there, but mate, it's not happening here. Okay,
so let's update the story. My latest rumor mill tells me that the bishop sat down with said rector and said, we got a problem. However, we've not heard any updates. This happened on Tuesday, as we've contacted the Diocese of Southwark and we asked for a statement. Nothing.
Southwark.
Whatever. Like, I'm English. Okay, I'm a colonist. We left for a reason because I can't. Oh my goodness, my King James English is no good. So, we contacted the diocese. George contacted the diocese, and you can hear crickets. No response whatsoever. Yeah. So, and there's no response from Canterbury. There's no response from Lambeth. This is big because this is an embarrassment, not just to the diocese, not just to the church, but the whole Church of England.
Yeah, so let's be very clear about what we know has happened in the last few days.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we know that Giles Goddard, the incumbent of St John's Waterloo, went to see, I think it was the Bishop of Kingston, so one of the suffragan assistant bishops. We know nothing about that meeting at all. Okay, but what we do know is that yesterday, Thursday, Ruth Gledhill, the former religion correspondent at the Times, now does sort of bits of freelancing. But in Christianity Today in the UK, or
Christian Today
in the UK, had a long piece about it, including several quotes from Giles Goddard, okay, saying, well, this was part of an interfaith project. I didn't realise it would be so controversial, blah, 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 blah. All that did, speaking to people in Southwark, all that interview did was inflame matters, right? If I had been the Bishop of Kingston on Tuesday, I would have said to Giles, you say nothing to anybody until we sort this out. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because if you want to manage a story, right, and you want to stop it, you just say to the people involved, do not say anything. Because if journalists don't get a quote, they don't have a story, right?
No, okay? we make up stories, don't worry.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah. And so what I understand from speaking this lunchtime to a journalist, to a mainstream media journalist, a fairly well connected one, is that Southwark Diocese have finally put out a statement which is basically on the lines of, we are aware of some disquiet with this service, we are investigating.
Well, I hear the Church of Wicca is all excited by this because it's a new frontier for them with the interfaith dialogue. And then there's the Druids. I mean, after the Druid thing, what else is there? But that was last week's news.
I'm considering starting up a new Asherah pole business because, I think there might now be demand.
Yeah,
Kevin.
I agree,
In all seriousness, there are a lot of very upset Orthodox clergy in Southwark Diocese. Mm-hmm. And if Southwark Diocese think that the way to handle this is just to go, nothing happening here, guys, move along, yes, sympathy, cups of tea. They think that's the way that that they can just handle this, that it will go away. I'm being told by people on the ground in Southwark that is going to inflame things more. What they need to see now is a very clear public stand against what happened last Friday in St John's Waterloo. Right? Nothing less than that is going to do now.
It is interesting because the ACNA formed because of the lack of leadership at Tech and the inability of the Episcopal Church to stop hypocrisy and heresy within the Church. Now, could this be a stepping stone for the AMIE?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, we got the AMIE plant in Salisbury and the issues around that we've spoken of. I suspect there'll be more of that happening. It just lets groups like AMIE in. But, just on a fundamental PR basis, I was speaking to a commentator this morning off the record, not the most conservative of people, by all means, who said to me, so far Southwark Diocese are handling this really badly. And what they should have done is responded yesterday when the mainstream media were asking them for a quote. Nothing came. It took them 24 hours to get back to them. Well, look, they must have realised as soon as they had complaints that the media were going to get this. And you know what? Here's the danger, Kevin, that if this snowballs, then the media are going to start sniffing around and they're going to want more stories, right? More stories in Southwark, and somebody's going to and somebody will probably want to give them the stories, and there are more stories in Southwark that could come out, and that would just be a disaster for the Church of England. It really would be, it really would be, and actually, may I suggest Lambeth Palace, as much as they can do, Church House needs to get a grip here, okay? Needs to go, actually, unless Southwark Diocese gets on top of this, this could get out of control, and who knows what happens.
Yeah.
Now, I've had mainstream media journalists sniffing around me, trying to sniff out more dodgy stories that I've been basically saying, not going to talk about that.
Well, I know. Well, it's interesting because, Archbishop Welby actually had a good week. I saw him speaking about Jesus and evangelism and all the right things, doing what an archbishop should do. I hope this doesn't get away from him, because if he's going to take the right path, you need to stop the wrong path. Peter,
he's been talking about evangelism.
Yeah.
He's been talking about how equality legislation for equality legislation's sake is pointless and actually destructive. Great week.
Yeah, it was.
My bromance is back.
Your bromance is back. Even I had a slight bit of bromance when he mentioned Jesus. Like, whoa, he's doing it again. Yay. Peter, thank you for your time.
My pleasure. For the worship of the triune God. And Canon F15 says you must not let any act of worship, anything happen in a consecrated space that is, departs from the doctrine.
Well, hold on a second. Then you would consider when Catherine Jefferts Schori came over 2 years ago to preach at a church that was interfaith? I'm following your line of reasoning here.